Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dylan Kotecki and I'm the software and video educator here at ON1. I'm joined by Dan Harlacher.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today.
We have some incredibly exciting news for you all today. But before that happens, I just want to give you guys a little bit of info about the webinar. It is being recorded, so if you do miss out on anything or you have to jump in halfway through, feel free to go to our YouTube or our blog and our website and we'll have that posted later today. Also, we're going to be having a Q&A session at the end. We have a Q&A module inside of the webinar, so if you have any questions, feel free to put in any questions you can. And also, if you're watching on Facebook live, feel free to hit up the comment section and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Keep in mind that there are a lot of people watching this, so we may not get to every single question, but we'll try our best. So,
well, we've got a lot of really exciting stuff to talk to you guys about. Before I dig into some of the new stuff, I'll give you about a minute to tell you kind of how we got where we're at today. So Photo RAW has been kind of a multi-year, a multi-generational project for us, really. We kind of started back in 2014 building the new RAW engine that actually is the foundation for Photo RAW. And over those years, there's a section of our website called the Photo RAW Project. Most of you guys have probably been there before. It's where users can tell us what features they want. They can vote on them, comment on them, and we'll also kind of communicate in advance kind of what we're working on for the next release. Well, it's been really valuable to us. It really helps guide what we build for you guys. We want to be very transparent and very customer driven, and that's the way that we do that. Now, beyond any of the individual features that you've told us about, and we've shipped about 80 of them so far, we've learned some kind of guiding lessons from that. So first, we've learned that you don't want to pay a subscription. You don't want your software to be a subscription. You want to be able to purchase and own it. So that's important to us. We make sure that Photo RAW is something that you purchase and you own it forever, and that you can put it on 5 computers, and you can put it on a Mac or Windows. It doesn't require a different license for it. The other thing you've told us is that you want to have a single application for your photography. You don't want to have to bounce back and forth between multiple applications. You don't like the way that Lightroom and Photoshop works together. So what we've done is we've built a single, fast, cohesive application that takes the best of both of those and puts them together for you.
So I told these people we have a huge announcement, Dan. What is our big announcement today?
We do. So today we're going to kind of take the hood off of ON1 Photo RAW 2019. So we're going to show you about all the great new features that we've built for you over the last year. Now, I'm going to quickly go over a couple of the key points and we'll get right into a demo. So for me, some of the most important, for me, the biggest new feature really is the change to layers. So layers in the past was its own module. It kind of hung outside of the workflow. It worked a lot like Photoshop. So you take a raw photo, you'd have to process it into a PSD file, and then to be able to work on it in layers to combine them together. And it meant that all of your raw processing settings were pretty much cooked. You couldn't go back and change those. Well, we've turned that on its head. We flipped it around. Layers is now just an essential part of the raw workflow. It lives inside of Development Effects where you work on your raw photos. So it means you have the full raw data all the time. It's really powerful. It's totally going to change the way you work on your photos. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. Another really big change, and this one I cannot understate enough, is we talk to customers every day who want to migrate from Lightroom over to Photo RAW, but they're scared to. They've used Lightroom for 10 years. They've got all of their organization, all of their keywords, their collections, and beyond that, all of the actual edits, all of the settings they've applied to their photos over those years, everything you would do in the Develop module inside of Lightroom, things like shadows and highlights and cropping and retouching, local adjustments. You want to be able to bring that to Photo RAW in a non-destructive, re-editable way. Well, that is something we've done. We've built some very powerful machine learning algorithms to make that process a reality. So with this release, you'll actually be able to migrate your complete Lightroom catalog over and pick up right where you left off.
So you're saying that people can literally take all of their photos and settings non-destructively and migrate them all into Photo RAW?
Yes, it is amazing. I'll show you kind of how it works here as we get through the demonstration. We've also brought back the portrait module, so it'll automatically find faces, smooth out their skin, retouch the eyes and the mouth. We've added a text tool for putting text on top of your photos. We've also added focus stacking. Think of it kind of like HDR, but for focus rather than for exposure. It'll combine a series of photos together and give you kind of one hyper-focused photo. It's pretty amazing what it can do. And there's a bunch of other stuff. We'll get to it.
So those are some amazing features, Dan. The huge question I'm sure people are wondering, when can I get ON1 Photo RAW 2019?
Yes. Well, you can actually pre-order it right now on the ON1 website. And there's some great incentives to do that right now. Now, if you're a pre-order customer, or if you're an ON1 Plus Pro member, you'll actually get access to the beta version on October 15th. You'll be the first people to get to play with it. And then it'll be available to the general market in November. So just around the corner.
So before Dan gets into showing you guys a little bit about this awesome new 2019, just remember that there is a Q&A section. So if you do have any questions, feel free to start sending those in. We're going to have a session at the end of the webinar so we can answer as many of those as we can. Also, if you're watching live on Facebook, feel free to comment and we'll try to get back to those questions.
All right, well, let us jump in here, and I'm going to share my screen so you guys can actually take a look at this guy in action. All right, so here we are inside of Photo RAW 2019. The first thing you're going to notice is that it looks a lot better. We spent a lot of effort in improving the user interface and making it cleaner and friendlier for working on your photos. We've come up with a new, easier to read font, so it's easier to read, especially on smaller displays. We've also taken a lot of the controls and we've kind of made them tighter together so it works better on a smaller display. Still kept the size the same so that even on people who have a hard time grabbing a whole lot of sliders will still be able to do that just as easily. And we've gotten rid of a lot of the distractions. There used to be a lot of little key lines and shadows around things that kind of took away from your photo. We really want the photo in the middle of your display to really stand out. That's the most important thing. Now, let me show you how layers is going to work. And as I mentioned, this is a fundamentally different way of working on your photos. Let me go grab some photos for us to work on.
He showed me this earlier yesterday and it blew my mind. So I'm sure you guys are going to be pretty stoked on this.
Yeah. All right, so here I've got 4 photos that were all shot at the same time. I'm just going to bring these up in detailed view so you can take a little closer look at them. And this is a shot of the Japanese gardens here in Portland. And you can see, notice there's some fish moving in the foreground. And as I go from frame to frame or photo to photo, you can see they're in a different spot. What I want to do is show you how I can actually use the power of layers to combine these 4 raw photos together, but still keep it all in one raw stack. So I'm just going to grab the first photo here, and I'm going to click on Develop. Now you'll notice right over here on the right-hand side, I'm just going to roll up my info pane up here so I have a little bit more space. You'll see a layers section that is new. Every photo that you open, you'll see the layer stack for it. If you don't want to work in layers, you can just roll that section up. You don't have to see it at all. But for a lot of you, this is going to be really critical to your new workflow. Now, below that, you'll see that I'm in Develop, and there's the tone and color pane, just like I would normally work on the raw processing for my photo. So let's do the same sort of things I would do on a raw photo, because this is still a raw photo. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to grab my black slider. I'm just going to hold down the J key. That lets me see my clipping. I'm just going to adjust my white and black points a little bit. Those trees up there at the top are a little overexposed. Let's bring those down. I'll bring my shadows up a little bit here to open that up. There we go. So I've just done some quick basic raw processing adjustments to my photo. Now I want to make sure that all those other photos look the same. So I'll just bring up my film strip, click the little film strip button. There's those other 3 photos. I can just select those and hit the sync button. So now those same adjustments that I did will be applied to those other 3 frames. There we go. Now I want to add those other 3 frames as layers so I can combine them together. There's a couple different ways to do that. What I'm showing you guys today is still a pre-release version. This is not the final version, so I'm going to show you just one of the ways that you can do it. And that is going to be to go up here to the Layer menu and select Add Layer from File. And this will open up kind of a miniature version of Browse that you can use to navigate and find photos in different places, even on different drives. Or if you want to add an extra to it, like a background or a border or a texture, as a layer, you'll be able to do it through this dialog as well. So I'm just going to grab those other 3 photos here, and I'll select Add as Layer. In a second here, it'll open these up, and you'll see them appear in my layer stack.
Well, oh yeah, you got it real quick.
There we go. So you see there's all of those photos added right there in my layer stack. And if I turn the little dot off, you'll see each of those guys in there. And whichever layer I have selected is the one that I'm seeing those non-destructive settings for. So if I go back to that bottom layer that I was working on, you'll notice the positions in the tone and color pane. And as I go to these other ones, in this case, they're actually going to match because remember, I synchronized the settings across all 4, but these are live raw processing settings. I could go back and change the raw processing for each layer in real time. It's pretty crazy. Now what I wanted is I wanted to combine it. Now I could just use the brush and I could mask it in, but there's an even easier way, and that's just to change the blending mode. Keep in mind that the water doesn't really change, it's just the fish that are moving around, and those fish are brighter than the water. So if I simply change my blending mode, it'll actually add up the fish. So watch, I'll just go to my second layer here. Let me turn these upper ones off so you can see this a little bit better. So there's the bottom layer right there. There's my next layer that I want to add. All I'm going to do is change the blending mode. So I'm going to click right here on the blending options gear. We've actually combined the blending options and the blending modes together to make it easier to get to. So there's all the common blending modes. I'm just going to select lighten right there. But you'll also notice that from that gear, I can get to the full blending options. So just like you would in effects, you have the full blending options, but now at the layer level. So you can target certain color and tonal ranges. You can protect shadows and highlights or skin, all those same options. And it goes beyond that blending options. It's the same for masking, which is really critical with layers. The whole idea of combining layers together is going to be to combine and use masks. And whether that's different photos, or you could even take different versions of the same raw photo. That's a really cool thing. I can take version A, where I've adjusted it for the shadows, and I can take version B, where I've adjusted it for the highlights. And I can actually blend two different raw renditions of the same raw photo together. It's really powerful. So anyway, if I click on the little mask icon up here, you'll see I have those same masking options that I have in effect, but at the layer level. So I can do luminosity masks, and I can adjust the density and the feather and the levels, or do a color range mask. All those same really powerful things that you could only do in effects, you can now do on layers. All right, let me keep going here. So I changed that blend mode. Let me show you that again. I kind of got sidetracked here. So there was normal, and there's lighten. See how it added those fish in, combined them together. Now I'm just going to repeat that process on the other layers. So we'll jump up to the next one here, and we'll change its blend mode to lighten. Voila, more fish. And the last one, there it is. Change the blend mode to lighten. And look,
wow.
Yeah, so now we've combined those together. So now we've got way more fish than we did in that first photo that we could get. All right, and again, this is just one example of the sort of things that you can do with layers. You can use it for doing head swaps or sky replacements or building composites, adding textures. The creative possibilities are really endless. But the beauty is that you still have the full raw data. So I can go back and I can change any one of these files and have every bit of shadow and highlight and color and detail and texture in them.
Well, and you only did that in what? If you wouldn't have been talking, probably 10 seconds. To, make an incredibly creative photo.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit more. I want to actually add a glow effect. I want to add it to everything. So you can actually take those layers and you could merge them together if you wanted to, or you could create a stamped layer, which is what I like to do. So I'm going to go up to the layer menu. I'm going to select the new stamped layer option. This will create a new layer above my top layer where it takes all four of those layers and squishes them into a new copy. So this will take a second to go ahead and do that. And then that layer is just like another raw photo as well. I can have my own settings on that layer. So this way, if I wanted to go in, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a glow to everything. This way it'll add it to the composite photo.
And you said the composite photo, or the photo that you're merging together, is containing all of the raw data as well.
Has all that same raw data as the others. Now, the other cool thing is you don't have to merge layers most of the time. In this case, because I really want to add a glow to everything, and then I have those multiple things put together with blend modes, I will. But let's say I'm just doing like a simple sky replacement. I've got a foreground and a background layer. I can add the same preset to both of those layers. So let's say I'm doing a black and white conversion on my photo. I could make the foreground layer black and white. I can make the background layer black and white. And I can actually use different black and white settings, which is really cool. Yeah. Because maybe for my sky, I don't want a lot of structure. I want the sky to be very soft. So I can do that. And then on the foreground, I want to have lots of details. So I'll turn that structure up. So you can really get two very different looks, even though it's just the same photo, by separating the sky and the background from each other. All right, so we made that stamped layer. Let's go to effects. I'm going to click over here on the effects module. You notice instantaneous switching. I didn't have to do anything. Here's the add filter button. I want to add a glow. I'll click on
still keeping layers. And still keeping layers.
The layers are all there.
All right there. All the raw data.
Yep. So here we are inside of effects. You notice when I click the add filter button, there's a new experience for shopping for filters. There's this new little filter pop-up. It gives you access to the same filters you did before, plus a couple new ones that we've added. A new film grain filter. There's also improvements to vignette. There's improvements to the curves dialog, to the color adjustment. Lots of improvements in here. It gives me a little preview of each filter. So as I mouse over it, I can see a before and after for what that filter does. Gives me a description about it. Gives me some keywords, and those keywords and the names and the descriptions are all searchable. So in the little search field, I can say, oh, I'm looking for something that's going to blur my photo. So it narrows it down to the different blur filters. I'm going to use a glow. So I'll click on glow. You notice it added that glow filter in there. And then I'll just use one of the styles that I like. Best way to pick a style is to use the little filter styles drawer. So I'll open this guy up and I'll just scroll through here until I see one I like. Ooh, I like that charge more money. There we go. We'll click on that one. I'm gonna roll it up. You can see how it's now added that filter on top. just like
That
that.
looks great.
While I'm here, let's crop this thing. You will notice that right above the crop tool, there's a move tool. So the same move tool that you would have used in layers that allows you to move and size and rotate and align layers lives right here, and I can do that inside of Development Effects. And then let's grab the crop tool. I'm going to crop this guy down. I just want to get rid of this bright light trap up here at the top. There we go. I'm going to crop that. And, you know, while I'm at it, let's add a border.
Let's do it.
So we'll click on Add Filter. There's
Do a
my
class
borders. Yeah, we'll do something pretty simple. I'm just going to do kind of like a black,
Yeah.
like a black key line sort of a frame on this one.
Look good with the water.
Let's see, where's black key line? There we go. So just a black edge, simple white border. Nothing ostentatious. There we go. I can use the scale slider to decide how thick I want that to be. Use the fit slider to make sure I'm not cropping off any of my photo. Perfect. That's looking pretty good. We're on our way to a nice little poster look, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we add some text to it? So there's a text tool that lives inside of Photo RAW now as well. You notice right here is the text tool. I'm just going to click on that guy. That's, we'll just type in Portland. It's be like a little tourism poster. There we go. Let's make that bigger. So I'm just going to select it. There's a WYSIWYG font menu to help you go pick out what font you wanted to pick up all the fonts on your computer. Let's use Lato. I'm going to get bold. Let's pick a big size, like go 200. And you know, while I'm at it, let's lower its opacity down to about 50 or 60. There we go. Now let's move this guy. And I'll put it right down here on the bottom edge.
Nice.
Yeah. So there we go. We were able to take 4 raw photos, combine them together, maintaining all of their raw data. Again, if we scroll up, there's still those same raw photos, all still re-editable all the way down to the demosaicing of the raw data. We combined those together. We were able to crop. We were able to add a border, add an effect, add text on top of it. It's all non-destructive. It's all re-editable. So you're really combining the power of the raw processor and a layer-based pixel editor, really the best of Lightroom and Photoshop, into a single application.
It's incredible.
All right. Let's see if we have any questions.
Yeah, so we do have a question. Do a question right here. Is ON1 Photo RAW 2019 a subscription? And like Dan was saying earlier, no, it's not. You pay one-time fee and you own the software outright. You basically get a perpetual license, which means you have that license for that software for forever. There's no monthly subscription or monthly rent. You just own that software outright for the entire duration.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
So another thing that people are probably going to ask is, how is this actually saved? So when we combine multiple photos together and we create a new layered file, it's saved as an ON photo, the same format that we use for when you create an HDR photo. That's kind of our version of a raw photo. It combines the actual, kind of bundles up the raw photos together into one package along with all the instructions and metadata so that you can move it from one computer to another. That's something that oftentimes you want to do. Even if you work in a studio environment and you have a file server or you put it on an external hard drive, you want to take it from your laptop to your desktop, this makes it all transferable. All that work can move from computer to computer without losing any of the detail in it. So,
We got one more question here. Will ON1 Photo RAW 2019 be easy to learn? And that is a huge yes. I'm the software and video educator here, so I'm constantly putting out different content that'll help you, learn different tips and tricks on how to edit, how to shoot. And we also have various people within our office are always putting out content too. Like Wit's always putting out different videos on how you can learn how to shoot portraits better. So we're all about education here. So we've made this one really sort of to get you up and running right away. It's super intuitive. It's incredibly easy to use. So we have another question here. When will ON1 Photo RAW 2019 be available? And before Dan gets into this, we will officially release version 2019 in November. So that's
in November, October 15th for the pre-release version. So you can get your hands on it starting in middle October if you're an ON1 Plus Pro member or if you purchase the pre-release. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys is how to use the new focus stacking feature. So focus stacking will take multiple photos shot at different depth of fields and combine them together. So what I've got here is the picture of a dahlia. It's kind of seen better days. I'm going to show you the whole series. I'm just going to arrow through these photos. So the very first photo is focused right here on the front. As a matter of fact, if I zoom in, you can kind of see how it's crisp and focused right here at the very front edge of the photo. And then if I go back here, let me go back to normal view. I'm going to arrow through these, and you'll see how the focus kind of progressively moves deeper in the photo. So you can see it keeps moving further to the back. Here we go. We get about halfway through. The stem is starting to be in focus. And I keep going back through that series. You can see how the foreground is now starting to go out of focus, and we're starting to see more detail in the petals in the background. Well, what I want to be able to do is actually combine all of those together into one photo where I get the best focus from each photo. That's what focus stacking is. Again, think of it kind of like HDR, but for focus instead of exposure. So I'm just going to grab all of those photos right here, and you notice there's a new focus button over here on the right of the module selector. I'm just going to click on this guy, and it's now going to align and merge those together. Again, think of it like an HDR, but combine the best focus from each photo together. So there we are. You can now see how it's captured all the detail across those frames. At the bottom down here, you can see each frame. You can see how they're ordered based on their focus distance or their depth of field. And I can turn them on or off. If there's a photo I don't want in my composite, I can turn it off. And there's also a depth of field slider, which actually lets me change the focus right here. So let's say I want it focused 2/3 of the way. I want from the front to 2/3 of the way through the flower. I can just grab this depth of field slider and I can just pull it back 2/3, and now it will reduce that depth of field. It only grabs the front 2/3 of the photo. Or maybe I want to do the opposite. I only want the back 2/3 and I want the front to be a little soft. So I can just grab the handle on the left side and I can turn it up, and you'll see how it actually is dynamically changing the focus for me as I adjust that slider position. Very powerful way to get the most out of a series of macro photos. But you can also use it for lots of other things. I've even used it in a landscape where you have a really wide angle lens where you want something in focus in the foreground and everything in the background at infinity, and you don't want to stop down all the way because you're dealing with shutter speed issues. You want to keep your shutter speed high. So it's a very powerful tool for that. So I bet you there's a couple questions about that one. So let's see if people have questions, and I'll get ready for our next questions.
We do have a question here. Is ON1 Photo RAW 2019 the next version of ON1 Photo RAW, ON1 Photo 10, and Perfect Photo Suite? And yes, we basically been building on the foundations of all of those to make, this incredible, probably, Dan said it earlier, our best version ever, best version yet, so that we can create this dynamic platform for you guys to edit your raw data and raw files. So it will be the newest version of browse, develop, effects, and layers, and all of the standalone applications as well.
Yep. For sure. All right, just a second here, and I will show you the new portrait module. So we didn't have any questions on focus stacking?
We don't.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions at the end. We have a big Q&A question period at the end here where you guys will be able to ask those questions.
So we do have a question on focus stacking. Does focus stacking auto align as well?
Yes, of course. It's very important with focus stacking that it does auto align. You can turn it off if you don't want it, but most people are going to want to turn that on. And then part of that is it helps deal with kind of the subject actually gets a little bit bigger or smaller depending on the focus point. It's called breathing, so it kind of needs that to help compensate for breathing as well.
How does it deal with movement between?
So especially, a lot of times you're shooting macro, you might rack your lens all the way out to its longest to get the best focus you can, and then you'll actually end up hand holding it, moving yourself back and forth, and it may not be perfectly aligned. It will actually align those photos up together. Jeez. So yeah, it's pretty powerful. All right, I know there's probably some portrait photographers out there, or if you'd like to take pictures of people, you'll be really excited about having the portrait module again. So here I am, I've opened a portrait. I'm just gonna go into develop. I could go into effects, it doesn't matter. The portrait tab will live in both of them right up here in the upper right-hand corner. So I'm just gonna click on portrait. There's even a portrait tool right over here on the left. I can just click on the portrait tool anytime to take me to the portrait module. Now, when you click on portrait, it's going to find all the faces in the scene automatically, and then I can simply click on the face I want to work on. So it's automatically selected this face for me right here, and all I have to do now is turn on the things that I want to do. If I want to retouch the skin, I'll just turn on skin. And you notice how the sliders for retouching the skin turn on. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you guys can see this better. There we go. Let me turn it on and off so you can see. So that's the original photo, no retouching at all. Let me turn it on. It's found the skin, built a mask for it automatically using that face detection, and now I can just adjust it. I'm going to turn the blemishes up. I'll turn the smoothing up a bit here to soften the skin a bit, and I'll bring the shine down a little. There we go. Now, if I want to work on the eyes, I don't have to. I can opt in to working on the eyes or working on the mouth. It's really up to you. It used to be you had kind of this long process of setting up a photo before you could work on it. Now, you just turn on the parts that you're actually interested in. So in this case, I do want to retouch your eyes. They're a little dark. So I'll just turn on eyes, or I can click on the eye tool. And then all I do is I click on each eye, and it automatically builds a selection for that eye. There's little handles to adjust it, although to be honest, you don't really have to go in and adjust these. It uses intelligent color range adjustments inside of that area as well. So I'm just going to tweak these just a little bit. When I mouse out, you see how those overlays go away, and the eye section is turned on, and I can make my adjustments. So I'm going to brighten up her eyes a bit. The detail slider lets me control how much detail I'm going to add to really make the iris pop out. There we go. I'm going a little overboard today just so you guys can see it from a demonstration point of view. We'll do the same thing for the mouth. If I want to work on the mouth, I just turn the mouth section on or use the mouth tool. I click on the corners of the mouth, and it'll add the control overlay, which helps me define where the lips and the teeth are at. I'm just going to adjust these a little bit here. There we go. And now I can turn up the whitening on those teeth. I'm going to whiten the teeth a bit more, and I can even make the lip color a little bit more vibrant.
Yeah. Instantly.
Now that's a pretty powerful amount of retouch.
Yeah, but still you can tone it down a bit.
Yeah, you can totally tone it down. Yeah. And the easy way to do that is there's the opacity slider right at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can just dial this back and forth. So a lot of times I'll do that. I'll turn it up a little higher than I want. Yeah. And I'll just adjust the opacity to kind of bring me back to reality. Totally. So it kind of makes it nice and adjustable. If you have multiple faces in your photo, they'll actually appear in a little strip. You just click on which face you want to work on, and you'll get a filter, one of these portrait filters like this for each face in your photo. So each face can have its own settings. Each face has its own mask. I can fine tune that skin area with the face brush. It's already selected. And I could paint in or paint out that skin retouching if I wanted to add or subtract areas from my photo. And of course, you can use any of the retouching tools. So like the retouch brush is perfect for the bigger things like wrinkles that the automatic retouching isn't going to remove because it's more of a user's choice. You can use that retouching tool at about 50% opacity. It's perfect for getting rid of wrinkles. All right, so that is portrait.
Yeah, can you copy and paste the face mask?
Sure.
When you make a mask?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you bet. And of course, this is all saved to the photos. It's all non-destructive, so very, very easy to.
We also had someone asking photos. We also had someone asking about red eye removal.
Yes, if your photo happens to have red eye, we don't see that a whole lot anymore. But if you do, there's a little checkbox right here for auto red eye removal. You turn that on, and it will find the red in the eye and pull the color, the red out of it, so they're no longer red. So, yeah. All right. Any other questions out there?
Not about portrait mode. We do have a couple questions just on the Photo RAW Photo RAW 2019. So one question here: what does it mean to keep your non-destructive edits from Lightroom? Basically, we've developed this AI that allows you to basically migrate your settings and all of the photos that you have in Lightroom into Photo RAW. It's not going to keep the same slider adjustments, but it will keep the look. And he'll show you that in a minute, but it will keep the look down to, pretty much exactly how it was.
Yeah, it's scary how close it is to what you see in Lightroom versus what you'll see in Photo RAW. And again, like Dylan said, the sliders won't be the exact same position. If a shadow slider is 30 in Lightroom, it might be a 45 in Photo RAW, and that really varies from photo to photo. They're completely different RAW engines that work very differently. So it's not a matter of setting the sliders to the same spot or even coming up with a mapping between the sliders. It really is an intelligent, kind of an AI adjustment on a photo by photo basis to get the same look. All right. While I'm here, we haven't left Browse out. There's some new stuff in Browse. I wanted to show you guys the new master keyword list. So if keywords are an important part of your workflow, we've made it a lot easier to go in and find all of your photos with a certain keyword. We've made it easier to edit and delete keywords and also to add keywords. So right here in the keyword list, I'm just going to roll this down. You'll see a list of every keyword that is in your database. These are any photos that you've ever browsed or cataloged. We'll harvest those keywords and then get added to this list. Now, I go through a lot of photos, so you can see it's a pretty long list. That's why there's a search field at the top. It makes it easy to find. So let's say I shot this in California, so I want to add the keyword California to it. So I start to type in, and there we go. There's things with California. Oh, you know what? I spelled California wrong, didn't I? All right.
Typo.
So it happens all the time. We make mistakes. So I'm just going to select that keyword. I'm going to right-click on it and say Edit Keyword. There we go. Now I can fix my typo. It will go out, finds every photo with the California keyword, and fixes up that misspelling. And if I happen to have had California spelled the right way and California spelled the wrong way, I had it in there twice, it'll merge those two together as well.
Nice. So it'll detect the one that's misspelled.
Yep, it'll fix the one that's misspelled. Yeah. If I want to add that keyword, I can just turn it on, or I can simply drag and drop. So I could just, let me go back to my grid view here, and I can just drag that keyword right on top of a photo and add it to it. You notice that when I added it, there's a little dot that tells me a photo in my current view has that keyword. It even counts the number that there are, just like that.
All right.
Cool. So that's the master keyword list. You can also use that for deleting keywords, and if you double click on one, it'll go find all the photos in your catalog that have that keyword assigned to it as well.
Awesome. So
All right. Questions?
Yeah, we have a question. Does it work as a plugin for Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, and what versions does it work with? And yes, just like before, it works with Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Lightroom. The versions that it works for are Photoshop CS6, DC, and Photoshop Elements 13 and 14, and then Lightroom 5, 6, and CC. So just like before, if you're looking to migrate, we have an easy migration tool that you can find on our site to migrate from Lightroom to Photo RAW. And now with this new AI, you can migrate all of your settings and all of those non-destructive edits all at the same time, so that when you go back into Photo RAW, all of those adjustments are applied to your shots.
Yeah. Just one more second here. You have another question out there?
Yeah, so are we going to be able, is keyword merging case sensitive?
So everything is case insensitive in keywords in our application. So you notice everything happened to be lowercase. That you can put it uppercase in one, but if you have an uppercase and a lowercase, it's the same thing to us. It'll merge those guys together. Yeah. Let me see here. I have to do a little screen trickery so that I can let you guys see two things at once here.
When you're migrating your photos over from Lightroom, do you have to catalog your files when they're migrated into Lightroom, or is it just they migrate automatically?
So the process, so when you migrate your photos from Lightroom into Photo RAW, I'll jump over to Lightroom so you guys can see this here. Make sure you guys can see Lightroom. You'll attach all of your drives that you have all your photos on your computer. You'll go through and you'll synchronize and make sure everything's up to date. Just kind of do some housekeeping in Lightroom first.
Yeah.
Get rid of any photos you don't care about migrating over, things like that. Then you'll go in Lightroom, you go to File, Plug-in Extras, and Migrate Catalog to ON1 Photo. And when you do that, you'll just check the Migrate My Settings option in that, and then it will take all of the photos that you've cataloged in Lightroom. It makes matching references for them inside of Photo RAW. It's not copying the photos or duplicating the photos. It's just making Photo RAW aware of where that photo lives. Brings over all the metadata, collections, all the keywords, all that sort of stuff. And then it will, in the background, analyzes the photo and will build a matching set of parameters in Photo RAW that matches the appearance. So let me just show you what I mean here.
And it's incredibly intuitive. Like you just go into Lightroom and you go where he showed you, and it just migrates it so seamlessly. It's super easy.
It's not much you have to do.
Not at all. Yeah.
Do a little split screen here. Just a second. I can get to the edge of my screen. Sorry, I'm on a laptop, so it's not the biggest screen in the world, so I have to kind of bounce back and forth here. So here's this photo inside of Lightroom, and then here's the same photo after it's been migrated to Photo RAW. You can see they're visually almost identical to each other, very close. Let's take a look at another photo here. Here's another one, and there's the rendition that we've created inside of Photo RAW from that Lightroom adjusted photo. Here's another. Now, these are not just the default settings. These are actually quite a bit of adjustments. I'm going to reset this photo so you can actually see what it looks like before the Lightroom adjustments are interpreted. That's actually what the raw photo looks like.
Wow.
So you can see it's much cooler. The shadows are plugged up, things like that.
You can't even tell the difference. And
Yeah.
I'm, here in person, you can't even tell the difference.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Hopefully, you never know with the screen sharing how
Exactly.
match,
Take it from me, guys. It looks the exact same.
Yeah. So it's really powerful. They can do it. And again, this is with not just the basic raw processing adjustments, but with your cropping, with your retouching, with your local adjustments, with black and white, with split tone. Almost everything that you can make an adjustment for in Lightroom will be mapped over to the same adjustment inside of Photo RAW. Very, very powerful.
Is there a limit to how many photos that you can migrate from Lightroom to Photo RAW?
No limit that I know of. Now, keep in mind, it's not the fastest process in the world.
Yeah.
It does take time to do it. And when you open a photo that has those settings assigned to it, you'll see those adjustments and work on it right away. But in the background, we're kind of chewing on those photos, building that matching results for it. So.
Yeah, if you have a huge library in Lightroom, I'm sure it's going to take a little bit longer. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well.
And so are all of the keywords brought over from Lightroom as well when you migrate?
So the keywords are kind of owned by the photo, so they get brought over with photos as well. So yeah, along with any other metadata you've added to your photos, keywords, description, anything that goes into IPTC, XF, XMP, all those metadata standards are supported as well.
If you're taking a photo from Photo RAW and transferring it into Lightroom, will you have those same edits as well?
No, it only goes
Okay.
one direction.
Okay.
So Lightroom is unaware of the edits that we create on photos. So. All right, so what I've been showing you guys today has actually been kind of a pre-release version of Photo RAW. We're still working on it. There's even more features coming that aren't quite ready to show you guys yet, but I wanted to talk to you about them a little bit as well. So one is the ability to automatically align layers. So that same technology that we use in HDR and in focus stacking to align photos together will be available inside of the layers pane as well to align layers together. So if you want to manually mask layers, you'll have the ability to do that. Some other cool things are improvements to the local adjustments. This has been a big ask from users. It will now reach even deeper into the raw data. So when you do things like you want to darken a sky and you want to brush the sky darker, it'll have the full raw data to go back to for that. So it'll be able to get down, really get the deepest, darkest shadows and the subtle highlights. Very powerful. I mentioned some of the filter improvements, so like the film grain filter and effects, easier curves and color adjustments, better vignette. There's also that better experience I kind of showed you for finding filters as well. Of course, there'll be all sorts of new cameras and lenses that will be added in this release. The one I really want to tell you about, and I can't quite show it yet, it's this close to be able to show you guys, is the new AI masking tool that we're developing. So if you remember the old quick mask tool from Layers, imagine we're going to bring that back. It's going to be way faster and way more accurate. By actually using artificial intelligence or machine learning, it'll actually be able to identify your subject and build a great mask for it automatically. We're really excited to bring that to you. Now, it won't make it in the November release, but we're going to give you a free update in December, which will add that feature as well.
Awesome.
All right, now we're not really done even there. So as you guys know, every year we release several more free updates throughout the year to add new cameras and add new lenses, fix any bugs that we happen to find, and we also add new features. So as you can see, we've had a couple new AI-based features coming out. That is a big area that we're working on, and you're going to see more and more features that are going to use AI or machine learning to make browsing and finding your photos faster and make your edits more intuitive as well. So as some of the new features come out over next year, continue to keep an eye out. It's going to be very exciting, some of the new stuff that's coming.
All right, Dan, we were talking for a little while, so I know there's a ton of questions out there, so let's try to get to a few of these questions and answer them. First one, does the text tool use your system's fonts?
Yes, the text tool uses your system fonts. It just detects whatever you have installed on your system.
Awesome. Will there be another free update for 2018?
There will be one more free update for 2018 coming in December that will add any additional camera and lenses that are added in the meantime, and I think there's a couple of bugs that we'll fix along the way as well.
Have the system requirements changed for 2019?
The system requirements changed just a little. I think the only thing that happens is Mac OS 10.9 is no longer supported, and I think that is it.
Is there any new improvements on masking to help with finer things like hair and refining brushes?
So when it comes to masking hair, there's a couple different tools that you'd use, and there's a lot of videos on the website to help you out with this. There's the Perfect Brush. I kind of use that as my coarse adjustment. It's a color-based masking tool, and I'll use that to get around everything in the hair, and then to clean up and finish the hair, then you use the Refine Brush. And the Refine Brush is the one that will actually go through and color decontaminate the hair and will actually get any little halos on the hair will go away. And the new AI masking tool will actually employ some of that Refine Brush technology, so it'll do it for you in a single step instead of multiple steps.
Is there any option in Photo RAW? I know there was like a location that tagged GPS for geotagging.
Yeah. So, I will show you. Let's see. I think I probably have something in here that has GPS on it. You make this a little bit bigger here so you guys can see. So in the, sorry, I got a little guy in the way here. If you look in the info, if your photo has GPS metadata, there's actually a little GPS badge right here. Most people don't know that's actually a button. If you click that button, it'll actually open up Google Maps and take you to that location, which is really handy. If you want to see that information, open up the metadata pane, click to exit, and right here you'll actually see those GPS coordinates. And you can copy and paste coordinates, so if your camera doesn't have GPS, but you go to Google Maps and you find that location, you paste new GPS locations in here, and of course you can synchronize those across a whole bunch of photos at once too.
I'm gonna have to steal those locations from you, Dan. You know some good spots. Does the text letter add onto a different layer, or does it add on the same layer?
The text kind of sits at the very top of the document. So if you think about each raw photo, it doesn't have to be raw, if it's a JPEG or a PSD, it doesn't matter. Each layer in your document kind of sits at the bottom, and then text sits on top of that, and then your crop for the document sits at the very, very top.
Awesome. Probably a couple more here, and then we can. And will there still be genuine fractal resizing?
Yes. So one of the things you guys noticed is what you saw might have changed a little bit. We cut back and forth as we're continuing to develop this. I'm using several different versions because each feature we work on is kind of on a different, what we call a branch. So I kind of bounce from version to version, and you might see resize disappear and reappear depending on which version I have installed. Rest assured, resize is going to be there. Resize actually has a big refactor under the hood. It's actually quite a bit faster than it was. Feature for feature, it's going to be what you've used before, though. There are a couple benefits you'll get, like soft proofing will be in there, and I'm hoping to get text in there too.
Awesome. So I know you're saying that we have the ON1 file that comes with it when you open it in Photo RAW. There's two files, correct? There's an XMP as well as an ON1 RAW file? So
when it comes to the metadata and the sidecars, and that's actually a really good KD article on our website that kind of talks about the difference between the sidecars. We always write out an Adobe compatible XMP sidecar file for metadata changes. So if you've added keywords or descriptions or done anything to the metadata, we want to make sure that that is transportable to other applications that honor the XMP standard. So we'll write out an XMP sidecar file. That doesn't contain the edits, though. So any edits that we do, plus we also put the metadata in there as well, goes into our sidecar file, the ON1 file that sits with it. That makes it transportable, and it lets it synchronize it across multiple computers. So that's something I do. I have a laptop and a desktop, and I keep all my photos in Dropbox. But you could use whatever cloud service you want, or an external drive, or a file server. So I make a change on one computer, and literally like 2 seconds later, I can look at that same photo on my other computer, and it has the exact same changes that I made on my other computer. It's seamless, super great, especially if you work in a small work group environment or a studio environment. Very handy.
Yeah. A couple more questions here. One, do we still have the same masking capabilities as we did in 2018, like luminosity, color range?
Yep.
All those things.
Yep. All the masking capabilities are the same. You get the benefit that now all the stuff that you used to do at the layer level, things like luminosity masking and all the blending options, are now also available at the layer level as well. So it's much more powerful masking in the layers world than it used to be.
A couple more questions about the mask, or refining the mask. And it says, will Photo RAW still have the spot removal tool? But we don't have a spot removal tool, but we have the magic eraser and the refine brush and all of those.
And the clone stamp.
Yeah, the clone stamp tool. So all of those are still going to be with 2019. You're not going to lose any of those features. We're basically just adding awesome features onto what we've already sort of built as the foundation.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's good for questions.
Any other questions out there?
Oh, we have a ton.
Let's see if we can do a couple more here.
Let's see here. Is there any, are there improvements to filters like noise reduction or color enhance?
So the color enhance filter has actually been broken out into its own filter, which makes it a little bit easier rather than having to go to the color enhancer. There's a standalone color enhancing filter for targeting specific color ranges, and then allow you to change the HSL values for those. So if you want to make grass that looks yellow look more green, or make a blue sky look more blue, that tool makes it a little easier and quicker to do that. It's a very powerful tool. It's one of the only ones that actually gives you a range slider where you can control the color range of that option as well. And then I forgot what the first question was. It was color adjustments and...
Oh, the noise reduction.
Noise reduction.
Yeah.
Right now, noise reduction hasn't changed, but that is something that we are continuing to improve, though.
Are there any improvements to the highlight slider?
So the two improvements. So yes, in general, the highlight slider has improved a bit, especially depending on the ISO that the photo was captured at. But the more important one is with the local adjustments. That's where most people actually end up using that, is when they're doing local adjustments. And that is improved dramatically because it now uses the full raw data for local adjustments instead of basically the results just below the local adjustment. So you have much more latitude for local adjustment highlight recovery. Now that said, we are a different raw processor than Lightroom, so we bias things a little bit differently. So Lightroom has really powerful highlights, but their shadows aren't as strong. We're kind of the opposite of it. If you think of film, it's like one shoots chrome, one shoots color negative. So what I do is I decrease my exposure back to get all my highlights, and I bring my shadows up. That's kind of the way I would do it in our application, where in Lightroom you kind of do the opposite. So
yeah. So as far as file types go, do we support TIFF files, and what other common files do we support that may not be the norm?
Sure. So in terms of file formats, we'll support raw photos from, I can't remember what the current count is. It's like 800 different cameras. So just about every camera you can imagine will support the RAW photos for it. TIFF, PSD, PSB, that's the big Photoshop format, PNG, JPEG, I think I'm forgetting one, and of course On Photo, our format as well.
So a good question here. Can you use Lightroom and Photoshop preset actions in ON1? I guess for that question, when you do migrate all of your settings over into Photo RAW, can you use that, whatever they put as those settings, and create that as a preset?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you bet. So you can always take those settings, make it a preset, and do it. And that's really the way to do it, because you have to understand that the settings really adapt photo to photo. They're actually context aware. So it's not just a matter of taking the same values in Lightroom and putting it in our app and yielding the same results. You really want to have the results adapted to that individual photo. So migrate the photo over, make a preset of it. That'll give you much better results.
So I know you talked a little bit about the new features. What are some other things that we've been working on speeding up and sort of improving, other than the brushes and everything like that?
Oh gosh,
Too much.
There's so many.
Too much stuff. Maybe just a couple main ones.
Yeah, like there's little things that you don't really call out in a big presentation like this that can really impact the way you actually work. So one thing that you'll notice is there's now going to be keyboard shortcuts for switching modules. So
nice.
That'll make it real easy. Like I'm so trained to hit the G key to go back to browse. So soon you'll be able to hit the G key and it'll go back to browse. Or if you're in the filter pane or the smart album pane and you're looking for a keyword, it used to be what we call a combo box. Basically, it was just a list you could pick from. Now it's a dynamic search ahead type of field. So I can actually start to type and it'll narrow the list down for me automatically. That's just a couple examples. There's a whole raft of those little small enhancements that we don't really call out in a big presentation like this. So.
Is there support for dual monitors?
So we've always had support for multiple monitors, and if you use two different densities. So if you have one that's a high DPI and one that's not high DPI, it needs to stay on one monitor. It won't split across the two very well. Now that said, we do get a lot of requests for secondary display. That is something different. That means opening another window of the application that you can put on another monitor. And that is something that we get requests for, and it is kind of on our short list for the future.
So as far as layers go, I know we integrated it into development effects. Can you also go back into layers as an individual module, or you use it now just within?
Layers is really used just inside of development effects. You have all the same capabilities that you did before, but now you actually can make adjustments to those layers a lot faster, and you also have the ability to see everything at once. So rather than only seeing one layer at a time when you're doing edits and development effects, you see the whole thing. So much better experience.
Can an Apple Aperture library be migrated to ON1 Photo RAW?
So today we don't have a built-in tool for making that sort of a migration. That's it. I know I think there's a knowledge base article on our website, and also one of our good friends, Scott Davenport, wrote an article specifically on how to migrate your Aperture catalog over to Photo RAW.
Great question. Are there any sort of, I know we have like the MIDI controls to use different, like loop deck and things like that. Are there any supports for that thus far?
We don't offer support for any external control surfaces at this time. If that's something that's important to you, go to the Photo RAW project page and tell us which ones you like and how you would use it. That helps us prioritize those features for the future.
Is there a list of keyboard shortcut functions?
Yes, there definitely is. It's the last page of the user guide. We'll show you all the keyboard shortcuts, and there's a gazillion of them.
So does ON1 have the equivalent of content aware delete? And we do. It's the magic eraser tool, and it's incredibly easy to use. You just basically brush it on the area that you want to erase, and it'll use content aware technology to just remove that area from your photo.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a lot of questions. Yeah. We don't have time to get to everybody's. We really appreciate you guys coming today. Before we do that, we do want to remind you guys about what's coming up this year in ON1 Plus.
Yeah, there's a little bit about ON1 Plus if you're curious about it or you don't know about it. It's an incredible way to increase your skills as a photographer. You get access to industry-leading professional photographers, gurus, and affiliates of ours, and they're constantly churning out amazing content that'll teach you how to shoot, how to edit. There's different critiques, and you can ask the coach. There's 7 new photography courses, 9 new Photo RAW editing courses, and 7 new how to shoot videos. And that's just all ready for 2019.
Yeah, there'll be a ton of new stuff coming in 2019. A lot of your favorite coaches are returning. You'll get to see more of Hudson and more of Matt, and Yeah, we're very excited about it. If you're not a Plus Pro member, you can actually get it for a really good deal on the website right now. I think it's $129 per year, and that includes your upgrade to 2019 as well.
So you get 2018 and 2019 all in one package.
Yeah. So yeah. All right. So a reminder, you can pre-order those today. Again, we're not done. We're always continuing to improve and enhance the products, all based on what you guys tell us you want. We are customer-driven, photography-driven software company. We don't build for graphic designers or anybody else. It's really what you guys want. So you use that raw project, use social media, tell us what you guys want.
Awesome. Yeah. So again, follow us on Facebook, guys. We have everything on social media, Instagram, Twitter. So follow us on those, and you can see what we're up to on the daily. We're constantly updating and putting out new content. I'm putting out new videos every week. So if you have a tip trick video that you want to look at, we have a bunch of those on our website. So feel free to follow us on every social media that we have.
And a special shout out to my beautiful wife, Whitney. Today's our 14th anniversary. I'm so lucky to get to work with you every day. Love you.
Oh.
All right.
All right, guys.
Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll see you later.